Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the PokerGO Podcast. It is Tuesday, May 27th. It is officially the first day of the 2025 World Series of Poker, but we are not at the WSOP yet. Tim and myself are here at the PokerGO studio. We just wrapped up the famous 25K fantasy draft hosted by none other than Daniel Negreanu, who we will hear from on this episode. We do have both audio and video from Daniel that we will play for you in a little bit. Tim, my friend, look at this guy.
I'm so tired.
How long did the draft?
So
how long did the draft go? We started. I don't even know if we started on time.
We started a little late, 1:15, maybe 1:20. It's 5 hours.
A record 24 teams. Believe it's never gotten into the 20s. Every single year, Daniel's like, it's going to be over 20. I'm getting interest. Of course, day of. People bail, but this year, 24, brand new record, absolutely freaking massive.
Huge
turnout. The room was packed. 192 players needed to be drafted. For those that don't know, you guys can go to 25kfantasy.com. You can see all the teams. You can read, history. You can look at past results. Just 2 years ago, just make sure you look at the result when we won. The rules are all on there, all that sort of good stuff. So, Tim and I will hit on some stuff. He was the auctioneer once again. A good job by you.
Thank you.
I mean, it was a tall task.
It's not the easiest thing to do.
It was a tall task.
There's people that are listening to this podcast. I'm going to complain about them. David ODB Baker is like a mouse. He just does this. He doesn't even put his hand up. He just kind of like $1. Like I can't see it, and I miss people's bids. Like, you need to just do the hand up. Like,
I mean, what we need? We need auction paddles next time.
No one would use them. That's the problem.
I know, but we still need them. And if you don't use them, you don't get your bid in. That's the rule.
And
put the damn paddle in the air. Let's go.
People love it's just like
on one side it can be the 25K logo. On the other side, you can write your name, your team name. So just the people that can kind of know what's going on.
And they just love to wait the full use of the clock to get that $1 more in.
I think you have to do that. And I know Mickey, who's off camera, my drafting partner, my co-owner of our team DPMD, if you head to 25kfantasy.com. I mean, it's hard because you want it to like slow down.
Yeah.
You don't want to just be like going $1, $1, because next thing you know, it's just going to keep skying the price, right? And so when you get to the part where you think it's going to slow down, when you're kind of reaching that ceiling of where you think a player might land, okay, then you start going slow. Once again, yours truly, pick the most expensive player. Every year I'm just going to try and set a new record. That's the goal.
Is this?
Go ahead.
What is the highest paid player ever of all time?
Jeremy Osmond's $141 this year.
I just wanted to check.
Jeremy, if you're listening, let's effing go, buddy. Come on. Let's effing go. You got to do it for us.
I heard he's spending some of the World Series in Colorado with his family.
No, stop. Get out of here.
I swear, I got a DM from him. He told me, he's like, I'm missing 2 weeks in the middle to take my kids to a volleyball camp.
And Brent Hanks tried to tell me that come July 1st, he's not going to be playing anymore. Yeah, okay. Whatever, guys. Whatever. But yeah, I mean, listen, it was I think a good draft overall. All things considered. Again, I think you did a really good job. Just kind of keeping everything moving. There were a few hiccups, not your fault when teams bid or whatever.
It's gonna happen.
We didn't hear like you said. There are some teams that they're very quiet with their bidding, or they come in like very much last minute. Or there's also the time when like somebody will say 15 and then like 7 teams will say 16.
Yeah,
and it's like, what's going on?
and the thing is, I normally take the one that I see with the hand up. So if you don't put your hand up, you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt there. And you also mentioned it, 24 teams. They don't fit. Some teams are 4 people, 5 people. It's the whole studio is full. And like I am kind of like left and right, so it does get a little difficult to see the entire room in one viewpoint. Maybe we need to change the setup a little bit next year. But hey, I did my best, and I'm surprised I didn't lose my voice. But
yeah, I mean, listen, with how much this thing has grown, I kind of did just complain on the last podcast how I'm surprised that this hasn't grown by like 1.5 entries on average every single year. But we did get a big boost this year. So that's really cool. I'm sure that big boost will carry over to ODB's Fantasy League, which is the $500 buy-in fantasy league that you can get into, but you use the prices that were set in the 25K Fantasy League. So again, go to 25kfantasy.com and you guys can find all the details on that. Just quickly, before we get further into this episode, do want to remind you guys of our sponsor, Play Poker Go. If you want to play free, authentic, real online poker, just head on over to playpokergo.com. They got casual games. They got serious tournaments. They got ring games, MTTs, sit and goes, whatever it is, they got it for you. Again, playpokergo.com. It is free online poker. Head there now. Head there every single day in the summer. You know, again, it's totally free. You can get in there. You get some chips to start with. You can spin a wheel. You can open a treasure chest to get more gold coins, and you can get in there and battle. Tim and I are in there battling all the time. What is your name on there? On Play Poker Go? Tramstop?
Tramstop, yeah.
He's Tramstop. Very weird name. I don't really understand
my
it.
old PokerStars name.
But I still don't understand it. And I'm Brosco.
We should really have, it should be PokerGo Donnie and PokerGo
I did
Tim.
check with the Play Poker Go team, and they told us that we could do that if we want.
Maybe we should do that.
We can do that. We should also get our own custom avatars.
100%.
If we're being
I'll
honest.
pay for it. How much do they cost?
I mean, I don't know, but
Thousands?
we can just, we're just going to bill it to the company. But you guys out there, deal yourself in at playpokergo.com. We'd expect to see you guys in the streets. All right, 25K Fantasy. A quick rundown of how it works. Auction draft. Everyone starts with $200 that they can bid with. And, you go around. One team nominates someone. There's a whole bunch of bidding. Tim here is the one who's like going once, going twice, sold to so-and-so. You have to fill up your team of 8 players. And then when it's all said and done, the scoring is based on how these players do in World Series of Poker events. Only live events count. There are... How many events don't count? Tag team doesn't count. I think that's it. I think everything else counts.
The ladies?
No, ladies counts. Seniors counts.
Employees doesn't.
No, I think it does. I'm pretty sure it does.
Oh, no, that's for ODB.
Yeah. So all that stuff counts. Well, I guess employees doesn't count because we're here and employees started today. So I guess that one doesn't count. But whatever. It doesn't matter. But all the big stuff. Again, you guys can follow it on 25kfantasy.com. I'm sure Tim and I will be talking about it on the podcast regularly, as we always do. We will also be, sharing on social media, various stuff. I know Poker News. I know poker.org. They dedicate some resources to tracking stuff on Poker News. They have little badges for all the players. They try and track the players. I know poker.org is working closely with David Baker, ODB, on stuff where they're going to do more coverage. And I believe I heard on ODB's pod that poker.org is planning to have kind of a dedicated reporter to the 25K Fantasy League all summer long. So there's that as well.
They're also giving away $10,000.
Yeah, poker.org is giving away a $10,000 seat. I don't know the exact link, but if you just go to poker.org, I'm sure you can find it, or you can check the poker.org.
You have like 2 days to enter. You submit a team under the same kind of rules that ODB runs, and I believe you win a $10,000 seat to a Las Vegas tournament. So that could also mean PGT event.
Oh, baby.
Poker Masters.
Oh, baby.
Some of that, like I don't think it's necessarily WSOP bound, but yeah, that's kind of pretty cool. I'm going to be entering my team. So.
Well, listen, no free ads, but they just got a really good free ad. So poker.org, check that out. All right, I want to know from you, sir.
Okay.
I was in the draft. So like what are sort of your initial big picture takeaways? Was it a shock to see, for example, us going up to 141 on Jeremy Osmus? I feel like sitting there, Mickey and I are going back and forth with, this time it was Ren Lin. And I feel like, it's us and Ren Lin, but then there's, 22 other teams that are looking at me like I'm an absolute alien out there.
The first thing, coming into this, I was thinking, look, there's 5-6 teams more than normal. And I don't know if people know how to adjust to the draft process, right? Because what does this mean? Does it mean I take the Jeremy Osmus for $150 and then find all the dollar players 5 hours later? Or do I do something different? Like there's no precedent for a draft size this big, so I knew the strategies were all out the window. The second thing I noticed is that some people are idiots. There's no research. Look, you and Mickey, very well prepared. I looked at others. I look at their sheets. I'd like to see who their stars are. I'm not going to give anything away, but I like to see how prepared people are. And you see these guys, with all these names, columnized, we want this one, we don't want to touch these ones. And then you see Dan Sepio, Martin Zamani sitting there with a notepad with names scribbled down in chicken scratch. You got other people that I don't know what they're doing.
The best, I know a team is I mean, I'll say they're drawing dead. I just don't worry about them. When I see on their computer screen, they're just looking at like 25kfantasy.com from last year. I'm like, okay, you are drawing dead. Like you're just looking at the past results. You have no idea what's going on. Okay, cool. That's good. But there were a lot of teams that I felt like had, I mean, I didn't like, I'm not trying to look at everyone's notes, but you can see them if you just walk around the room or whatever. And there was a lot of people who had like a lot of spreadsheets. They definitely brought preparation, which made things a bit harder overall. So
I think like the back end of the draft, right, where it's half the teams are gone, and now pretty much whoever you nominate, you're going to get. I think that's where your team is made, right? And I don't know how prepared people are, like how long their list of the $1 players is, and we had some wrinkles in this. We had an Australian team throwing out some Australian names that kind of mix things up. But I think that's where your team is made, right? When you lock up that star player like you guys did, Jeremy Osmus, and then you can get these really high-valued $1 players that are going to like perform at a better dollar to point average than some other people that are get drafted. And you can look at these names and you'll see that he's super valued, and even still, you have people that there's one name that stands out that didn't even get drafted. Do you know what I'm thinking? No. Alan Kessler didn't get drafted.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying Alan Kessler's the best poker player in the world, but you're getting, what are we getting? 70 events from him, maybe? Who knows? He's going to be in the 10K mixers. He's going to play the littler stuff. Whether you think he's good, it's just a volume player you could have got. You look at all these, the 8th player drafted for all these teams, I feel like Alan Kessler might be better than half of them.
Yeah.
Value-wise. Value-wise.
I don't disagree with you. I think people kind of struggle at the end of the draft, and they just start throwing out names that they know or have heard. And I know Alan Kessler's not always the most popular player within that room, but normally he does make an appearance. By the way, he didn't make an appearance this time. We
got one special.
We
did
get a Phil Hellmuth appearance.
As he was getting nominated and bid on, which was like the best timing possible. It's impeccable. It was
crazy. I guess just a quick aside, if you guys did miss the draft and you do want to go check it out and see what it's about, you can head to the PokerGo.com YouTube channel. We did stream the entire draft from start to finish, so that is available. I know there were plenty of people that were tuned in. The chat was extremely active throughout, so if you want to go back and check that out, you are certainly welcome to do so. What do you want to hit on first? Like, you want to talk about
Let's talk about your team, and then let's talk about teams we like, or we could just like kind of whatever stands out to us. I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, draft is over. So last episode, when we were doing the predictions, and I want, one of the questions was who's the favorite to win player of the year? My favorite to win player of the year is Jeremy Osmus.
Yep.
I backed out from saying it on that episode because I didn't want people to listen in and possibly get an idea that we were going to be taking him. That was the player Mickey and I decided that, we agreed this is the guy we're essentially going to go all in on. And to be honest, as I was bidding and going back and forth with Ren Lin, I thought I was going to have to go to 193. It got to the point where I was like, here we go.
If we're talking about people without a strategy, it could be Ren Lin. I felt like you two.
At one point, Ren Lin looked at me and he said, I got a whole bunch of $1 players. I'm like, yeah, okay, so do I, buddy. Like, what do you want me to do?
It was when you guys were going at it. I wish there's no doc on draft order, right?
But I will say that. So the first player nominated was Nick Schulman.
Yeah.
And he went for over $100. I think it was 107, which, listen, Mickey and I were both very big on Nick Schulman, but it's one of those things where we know if we want Osmus, ultimately we can't also get Schulman. I mean, maybe there is a world where, some miracle, fantasy universe where that happens. But it's very likely that it's not going to happen. Okay. I was surprised to see that Nick did push up over 100. Now, it's not that we don't agree that he is that type of player. It's just that in the past, he hasn't gotten that high. He's been a bit lower. He's been like in the 70s, I think, if I recall. So that was interesting to start. But then once that happened, I mean, my initial thought was, okay, we are going to have to go to the 130s, 140s for our top guy, Jeremy Osmus. Mickey, the freaking GOAT, he's like, Jeremy Osmus is probably going to go for 140. That was like his projected number, what he had, and he ended up going for 141. So Mickey had that very much nailed. But it could have also went the other way where it was like, okay, well, maybe if everyone's kind of all in on Schulman, maybe then they're not all in on Osmus, So yeah, I mean, ultimately, it came down to Renlin and I, and we were going back and forth, $1 a piece. To be honest, I don't really understand the strategy from these other teams. If you're bidding against me and you're up to 140, why are you not continuing to just go? Especially Renlin, who claims that he has a $1 player. Like, I don't like 140 is your cap. Like, what is this cap?
Did you have a cap on Jeremy?
The cap was 193. Which is the max you can go.
Confirm that teammate?
Mickey, yes.
Confirmed. Damn.
And I'll tell you what our plan was. If it got to like 175, I was saying 193 because at that point you can't risk not getting that player if that's who we want. So it's like at some point you can't risk like possibly saying if he says 175, I say 176, then he says 193.
Yeah,
like we didn't want to risk that.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, fine, here we go. If it gets that high, I'm just going to have to say the number. And then we're going to leave the room for 4 hours and come back and try and draft a bunch of $1 players. That was the plan. But like, I don't understand that strategy. Another strategy that I don't understand is these teams. There was several of them today, and there is several of them every year. They're in on like every player that gets nominated. I'm like, what? What is that?
Maybe they have a number in mind for every player.
That seems so weird to me. It seems like you should pick your kind of target guys and you should go after them. Now, speaking of target guys and pulling this back to our team, everyone that we got on our team, all 8 players, we got Jeremy Osmus, Seth Davies, Steven Song, John Shorman, Boris Angelov, Tommy Corral, Nicholas Milgram, and Yuri Reichenstein, we had on our list. So they were targeted players from us. Now, some of them were a bit further down the list, yes, because obviously players get taken from you, you get outbid, all that sort of stuff. But we got everyone that we set out that was on a list. We didn't have to pull any audibles. We didn't have to randomly be like, oh, we got to pull this guy in because all of our guys are gone. No. So I feel good in the preparation that we did. I will also admit that at some point it did feel a little touch and go because some of the players were getting thrown out from some other teams who had more money and they were bidding on them. So it was an interesting draft. Our plan A coming into it was Osmus. Get Osmus first. We loved the fact that we drew the 3 card to nominate third so that we could nominate Osmus and just go get him right away. And then we wanted the king, John Reardon.
How much did they spend on Reardon?
$54. We went all in at 53 and we got outbid.
There was a lot of that today.
I mean, that's just outrageous by that team. It's absolutely outrageous.
Sure on the Seth Davies pick. The reason being is obviously there's going to be some high rollers here in the studio, so we may lose him for that. But is he going to fall in that kind of Jason Kuhn category where
Seth Davies said everything, no limit hold'em and PLO, 10K plus.
Everything? 10K plus.
A bunch of stuff below that, I'm going to be firing hard.
All right,
he's ready to go. Another thing that we did, Mickey and I, is we spoke to pretty much everyone on our team. I mean, we didn't speak to Steven Song, but we don't need to speak to Steven Song. We know about Steven Song, and we didn't speak to Boris Angelov, but we had secondhand information from somebody invested in our team about Boris Angelov. Everyone else, we had direct messages from going back and forth with them. Hey, this is like kind of what I'm planning, whatever. I had no idea how to reach Yuri Richtenstein. I've always wanted to draft him, and I got a hold of his email, fired off an email. The guy replied in 30 minutes. Within 30 minutes, I was like, this guy is in, ready to go. Ready to effing go. So Yuri, baby, you are our field bonus king. Please make it happen. You and Steven Song, I'm expecting 2 big field bonuses.
Can you throw us some $1 players you were targeting if, say, the Nick Milgrams, Tom Corrals, Yuri Richtensteins didn't come your way?
Yeah, I mean, we had Ian Steinman again, who we
threw him out.
We nominated him, and then somebody immediately said $8 or something. So I mean,
they were all in for $8.
That was unfortunate. We had Ryan Lang on our team or on our list. We had
he went early, didn't he?
Yeah, fairly early. We had Renji Mao, Ricky Mao, who ended up getting picked up by.
That was the best part of the. So for those who's not aware, Renlin gives me these names. So I don't know if you saw, he wrote the names down. He always does this. He's very great. This time he wrote them in Chinese. I don't read Chinese.
As if you're going to read Chinese.
In Chinese characters. I don't read that. I can read my name in Chinese. That's it. Then the real name.
He probably just thought fellow Asian. Maybe there's a shot.
Yeah. And I was like, I think I got the pronunciation pretty well because I had to ask him. I was like, did I pronounce this right? He's like, yeah, that was good. But like, He
Well,
was
you definitely butchered some other
Oh
names.
yeah, I'm terrible at those. I'm terrible at pronunciation, but I do my best. And then he had Renji Mao, who's also Ricky Mao, I guess. Ricky was sitting at the table with them, and I think it was Brent and someone else were bidding on him. Brent didn't even know he was sitting there. Renji brought out his camera and was filming it as he was getting bid on, a bit like Phil Helmer. So I already love this guy.
Yeah, he's going pretty hard. He's got a big package.
Yeah, he's got a big package on
PokerStake,
so big ups for him.
So yeah, I mean, we had a bunch of people. We had people. We don't necessarily call them $1 players. We call them bargain players because maybe we need to get them for 3, 4, 5, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of our biggest guys is somebody that we had last year, and that was Dario Aliotto. But for whatever reason, other people were on him, and he went for a crap ton of money. He went for 25,
20 something. Yeah, 20 something.
I mean,
was 25
really
all in, I think. Though
we have to have the best hit rate, our team over the years, of putting somebody on the map for like sub $5, and then all of a sudden they're John Reardon $54.
Yeah,
like we were on Steven Song, we were on Dario Aliotto, we were on obviously John Reardon. Like we've been on all these guys for cheap. It goes back to the whole genesis of the entire thing. Myself and Rich Ryan talking some smack on the Poker News podcast back in the day, saying like it's Ivy and the Misfits. It's Ivy for $193 and 7 players for $1, and that was the whole idea. And basically Daniel Negreanu listened to the podcast, said, "Hey, you guys can sell action and get in here if you want." And that's how we ended up getting into the thing. Basically Daniel was like, "If you guys are going to talk the talk, you need to come out here and prove it and try and walk the walk." So we've been in this thing every time.
You proved it. One time.
We did win it one time. But this is the year to win. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
This is the year to win. So we have Jeremy Osmus, $141. Seth Davies, $29. He's our next most expensive player. And Davies is our, he's our high roller guy. We definitely wanted to target a guy who is like, he's going to play the 250K, the 100K, the 50Ks, all that sort of stuff. We wanted like one of those guys on the team. Seth has been absolutely on fire the last, year? Maybe 8 months to a year, absolutely crushing it. Not that he hasn't been an extremely good player over the years. It's just, variance is a giant bitch and it doesn't always work out for you. Steven Song, our 3rd year in a row with Mr. Song. So we love to have him. We got him for 17. We were prepared to go a little bit higher. And then we rounded out the team. John Shorman, $1. Boris Angelov, $1. Tommy Coral, $1. Nicholas Milgram, $4. But he was really $1. We bid $4 because at that time, the way that we structured things, no one else could bid higher than $4. So I believe it was Daniel Negreanu who threw him out for $1. We said 4, shut everyone out. Great. And then we had $6 left over for Yuri Reichenstein. We just nominated him for $6, knowing no one else had that money left. So in terms of like strategic maneuvering at the end with the money that we had, I'm very, very happy with how we closed things out because we planned our nominations in a way that we're like, okay, let's throw this guy out there. Maybe he'll slip through for $1. If not, that's fine. We do want to save money for Nicholas Milgram and Yuri Reichenstein should we need it at the end because we definitely want those two guys. And, as it turns out, I mean, it's not that those guys wouldn't have come to us for $1 or $2, but we were able to for sure lock them in. Like it was basically Mickey saying, yeah, Yuri Reichenstein, $6, just give him to us because no one else has that money. So he's ours. So overall, I'm extremely happy with things. Obviously, this whole thing is a giant, gamble and a variance fest, so whatever. But it's good. What else you got for me?
No, I'm looking at the teams. I'm trying to see if do I have a favorite team? And
well, you keep looking. I'm going to run through the top 10 most expensive players from this draft. So we have Jeremy Osmus on our team, $141, a record price for the 25K fantasy draft. Then it's Scott Seaver, $125. According to multiple sources, Scott Seaver is trying to run it back for WSOP Player of the Year. So he's the second most pricey player. Yuri Zavalevsky, a.k.a. Yuri Nerd Guy, the Brazilian superstar. Third most expensive player at $119. Then you have Daniel Negreanu, who was drafted by himself, $108 for him. We paid $132, I believe, last year. Nick Schulman, $107. He was the first player off the board nominated by Mike Lang's team, and then ultimately drafted for $107. Jesse Lonis, an absolutely massive price for Jesse Lonis, $103. So those are the top 6. Then we have everyone else within the top 10 is above $90. So we had Sean Deeb at $99, Benny Glaser at $99. Phil Ivey must be back because
Must
Phil
be.
Ivey went for $95. Mickey and I talked, and I said I think Phil Ivey's back. Like I think he's back. So it seems like other players seem to agree. $95 for Ivey, and then James Obst, your Aussie boy, $91, who was on our list for kind of like mid-tierish, possibly bargain, because he's one of those weird players who I don't think a lot of people talk to him or know about him. But then he walked in the room, of course, with Team Aussie.
I sent him an email on your behalf.
No, I know, but I'm saying a lot of like he's just like a guy who I don't think a lot of people have connections with.
Yeah, that's
so they just kind of don't know what's going to happen. But then he walked in the room, so obviously you could tell that okay, probably a lot of people are going to be on him. So that's that. I guess the other.
Can I give you some intel on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was talking to Didier Guerin, who is the captain of the Team Australia team. He was telling me that back in Australia in the poker tournaments, the APL, they run something very similar to this, but for Australian players for their major series. So they're running their own kind of 25K fantasy.
We need to be doing this for every PGC event.
Yeah. Didier was drafted last year in the Mark Gregorich draft, which got him interested, and then they launched that in Australia. So he's been playing that, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna jump in. I know how the rules, I know how it works. And that's why he drafting a team, and that's why he also drafted James Ubbs, who was sitting at the table with him.
Yeah, I mean it's tremendous stuff all around. I guess I should move over to hit on Daniel Negreanu's team next, just because we do have some audio and video with Daniel. So Daniel ended up with himself first, which I asked him about in the interview. So you'll hear his thoughts there. He also finished with Zhao Samao. Those were his top two most expensive guys. He's got Mike Matisau, aka the Mouth. He's got Anthony Zeno. Shout out Zeno. He's got Eric E-Dog Lindgren, Tyler Brown, John Turner, and this is the pick of the draft. Nick Palma, Nicky P. I mean, what in the universe is this pick? So that is Daniel Negreanu's team, and let's just throw it to D-Negs right now, and let's hear from him after the 25K fantasy draft.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Like I had these people saying I want a team, and people say that every year. I'm like, yeah, but it's 25,000. And then they sent me 25,000 in Bitcoin. I'm like, okay, we'll see you here. Obviously, it just shows how much this thing has really, really grown and how much people see throughout the summer. They have this FOMO. They want to be a part of it. They want to draft their own team. And now you have the other extended aspect, which is the David Baker pool. So for the low rollers, you're going to have a chance to build your own team, taking a look at the scores here, and it's a big group of players with 24 teams. I had no intention of drafting myself because the way that I look at it is when you have an expanded group of teams, if you do any other fantasy, you realize that like there's less high value targets, so they go up in price. And I saw last year I went for 132. I'm like, these guys are going to spend 160 on me. But all of a sudden I hear 107 and nobody's, 108. So now I had to go complete audible with my strategy. My strategy was Max Coleman, Joao Samao as my big two. So now it's instead me and Joao Samao. So I'll take that. The thing is you want to get value. Matisau at $3 is value. E-Dog at 2 is most certainly value. Tyler Brown, I really like his game. I think he went for what he was supposed to, probably-ish. And Pearl Jam, he's a guy who can play all the mixed games for $1. The wild card is, of course, Nicky P. He was texting me nonstop saying, bro, I'm bringing it. I'm going to have a great summer. Pick me. I looked at my list. I'm like, I think it's time to give Nicky P a shot. Well, we got 50Ks. Lady Gaga, Team China, I always play every year. It's a 50K bet. I'm charging him 100% tariff, so he's got to lay 150. No, I'm kidding. But I like his team. I almost was going to go with the strategy of sniping his team because he always picks a couple big guys and then picks these Asian guys we don't know. And I don't know them either, but I was just going to say 2, on randoms. But I didn't go that route.
All right, so that was D-Negs. You heard it there. I mean, he's got... People were coming up to him, by the way, afterwards. He's going side bets. Like 50K here, 50K. I mean, this guy's got to have 300K on this draft. I mean, what
maybe
in the world?
Maybe more.
I mean, what in the world?
They all do it. That's what they're all doing. They're all doing
wild.
the side bets.
It is wild. I don't ever do any side bets for our team. I am essentially all in on with what I want to invest on the team. And that's that, and plus a lot of these
your
guys,
teammate wants to do a side bet.
A lot of these guys, well, hold on. A lot of these guys come up to you and they're like, a 5K side bet. I'm like, what? No,
I don't have
what
5K.
is wrong with you guys? No, we're not doing that. Like, I'm fully like, this is already it's a giant crapshoot as is.
Yeah.
You're betting on people who are gambling for the next 7 weeks. I mean, it's crazy. So whatever. But he wanted a side bet?
Yeah, he was talking trash about. I'm not gonna. I won't say the names, but he was talking a bit of trash about one of the teams.
Well, we know
he's
Mickey.
ready to side bet.
He holds some grudges.
He's ready.
Maybe he'll
he
get
does
in there
hold
and
some
fire
grudges.
away.
But
Maybe
we'll see. Maybe he'll slide
away.
into some DMs via Twitter and get some side action on himself.
So a couple of picks I thought were, I guess, crazy, wild, insane. First of all, there were some names that I've never heard of, which I think that's great. A Romain Marvin, I don't even know how to pronounce that, from Team Australia. I think Team Australia, I feel like they brought 3 Australians and they're like, we're just going to draft them. Like, that's just how this is.
Well, what's funny is one of the guys that they nominated for $1 got picked up by Team Novig. I'm like, and then they had money. They didn't spend any more money on getting him. I was wondering if, like, why did they not, I'm going to look up his handle right now.
Was that Cooper Feltham?
Yeah, he's got 600K in winnings.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
I don't know either.
Not that Cooper is not a good player, but I don't know who
Yeah,
Cooper
but I'm
is.
surprised if they're going to nominate
he was at the draft.
Yeah, he was at the draft.
Yeah.
Like, I'm surprised they didn't just add the $1 more to try and get him. Because
Yeah.
the guy that got him only had $3, that he was maxed out at 3, bid 2. So you would have got him for $1 more. So I don't know. Maybe he's not playing.
Yeah. I mean, John Raciner for $54 is probably the most absurd pick of the draft. The guy's having a kid.
Okay, if you didn't know that, would it be an absurd price?
Okay.
Because I didn't know he was having a kid.
Okay, but here's the thing. You have to know that stuff. You can't just gamble on these players.
Of course.
Like, you need, like, Mickey and I, and even before Mickey and I doing the draft this year, I've always been like, I want to have an idea of what these guys, I don't just want to, like, throw Hail Marys. There have been times when we have, thrown Hail Marys in the past, and we've ultimately been burned by things. So we don't want to have that happen. You want to try and gather as much information as you can, just like you're doing in poker, where you're trying to collect all the information that you can to hopefully make the best decision. Still, an incomplete decision, right? You're just trying to get everything, trying to use as much research as possible, as much, reaching out to people, talking to people, all that sort of stuff. You can check sites like PokerStake. You can go on social media, like whatever it is, and just trying to feel stuff out. And that team, Splashy Octopi, I remember they drafted him and they came over to us and they're like, oh, Raciner for $54. Like, that seems like a good pick. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, he's having a kid. He's probably only going to make a couple trips here and there. Listen, if Raciner's here playing every single day, he's probably an $80 or $90 player. Okay. Yep. But he's not going to be here every day. So you just can't, I don't think you can spend that type of capital. And I think you could tell by the teams that were bidding on Raciner, there were teams that knew that he was having a kid, and there were other teams that didn't know.
Yeah.
And the ones that didn't know were bidding on him. So, what are you going to do there overall? So yeah, that team overall, Splashy Octopi, seems somewhat questionable to me. I mean, I like Reardon for 54, but that also feels like one of the things where I think Reardon is worth 54 to us. I don't know if he's really worth 54. We just have him near and dear to our heart. King John Reardon III, as I love to call him.
Well, he's a locker room guy. Good chemistry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's the locker room guy.
Like,
the glue of the team.
So,
you know who I don't like on Splash Octopi? Not the biggest. I know it's cheap, but Eric Baldwin, $5. How many Venetian and Win events is he going to play over World Series?
Sure. I actually don't mind that pick.
It was their last pick, but just like, I wonder if they could maybe, I don't know, they could have maybe found someone.
See, I'm curious on what, because of how they approached John Raciner, I'm curious if they know anything about Mike Leah. We spoke to Mike Leah.
Yeah.
He was on our bargain list, but he's only making a few trips.
He said 4 weeks, right? I think he put out a tweet or something.
And he's he's probably good for $1, maybe, but like I just don't know what they think about him, because I just think overall their team has a lot of gaps in terms of schedule.
Same with Goro.
We talked about Raciner. Yeah. Mike Gorodinsky is one of those players who I don't think plays a full schedule anymore, right? Mike Leah's not going to. You just brought up the point about Eric Baldwin that's worth making. Is he going to be venue hopping?
Yeah.
So there's that. Ray Henson, I don't know about Ray.
Got kids
I just
back
don't
in
know.
Houston. Can he really dedicate 7 weeks here? Or is he going to do 2 weeks here, 1 week home, 2 weeks here kind of thing? So a lot of holes in their team. Yeah.
I think Eric Seidel, who's on their team, is an incredible player. The guy's a freaking legend. There's an article on PokerStake where they did speak to him. He said 25 to 30 events. So I think if you're ultimately comfortable with that, then that's fine. Maybe you want, to get up closer to like 40 to 50 events, right? Love the Robert Mizrachi pick. Do really like that one. I think that's their best pick overall. Again, because even though I love John Reardon, I just think that John Reardon is not worth the price to other teams. He's worth it to us. Okay, this is our guy. Okay. I mean, let's just quickly run through some of these other teams, and we'll kind of like be like, okay, we like this, we don't like this. You know, we won't keep this super like in depth about everything. I'll just go through like as the draft order went. Mike Lang's team. Shannon Shore for 35, Ian Matakis, former player of the year for 20, Ari Engel for 20. I don't like that pick at all. Dan Shack for 10, Adam Owen for 22, Sam Soverell for 4, Josh Reichard for 37, and then Ryan Honig for 52. I know that price tag at the end there might shock a lot of people, but they had the most money at the time and they just said, we're all in, you know, it's our last pick, we're out of here type of thing. Anything stick out to you there? And if when we run through these teams, if nothing sticks out, we can just quickly move on. It's not a big deal.
C+ grade.
C+ grade. Okay. I like it. We had Adam Owen on our bargain list. Obviously there were many other teams on him as a target player, you know, even for a somewhat cheaper price. And he ended up going for 22. The Ari Engel thing is just tricky because honestly, and I think he said it before, like on social media, I could be at the freaking Binions playing the $300 Omaha 8-barrel. Like you just never know with that guy. So there's that. I heard Sam Soverell might be playing mostly like here and there at the WSOP and focusing on the stuff here at the studio, the big PGT events. So I don't know about that. Now, Josh Reichard is invested in their team. So having him there, you know, he's probably a good player. He's like their version of our Steven Song. Team Phenom Poker, Kevin Gerhardt for 15, Sean Deeb for 99, Chris Vitch for 48, Max Pescatori for 2, Daniel Cipiol for 12, Hal Rotholtz for $5, Matt Vallejo, who is the co-founder, owner, CEO of Phenom Poker, and then Huckseed for $1.
Oh, great pick.
The Huckseed for $1. You're only saying that because Mickey's off camera. The Huckseed for $1 is, I mean, is Huckseed going to play
Look,
two
he
events?
is a Phenom Pro, right? So maybe
Is he really?
I thought he was.
I couldn't tell you. I have no idea.
Okay, then maybe I don't know.
This
is a B. This is a B.
A B
because they have Deeb. He's going to play 10,000 events. They have Kevin Gerhardt, who's going to be in all the mixers. Same with Vitch.
So the
same with Pescatori. And
the interesting part
guy.
about Kevin Gerhardt, and this is where some teams have an advantage over other teams. I talked to Kevin and I asked him, you know, are you doing anything at 25K? Are you helping a team? Because he's helped teams in the past. And obviously Kevin has done some commentary alongside me. We're relatively close, you know, all that sort of stuff. And he said, yeah, he's helping out with the team. This is the team that he helped out with, Phenom Poker. And he also said that the team he's helping out with, if they draft him, are going to be willing to put him in some bigger stuff.
Oh, there we go.
So this is another one where as the bidding's going back and forth between this team, Phenom Poker, and whoever the other team was, I'm thinking, well, it's way more valuable to Phenom Poker if they're ultimately going to put him in tournaments versus the other team who might spend up and then he doesn't play those bigger like 10K mixed events. Mm-hmm. So the fact that Phenom did ultimately land him is probably a very good thing. One, for Kevin, you know, he gets to take some more shots, which you often see through the 25K fantasy league. And then it probably benefits Phenom Poker overall. We already talked about our team, so we'll skip them. We'll move over to the Dinkers, the defending champs. They got Benny Glauser for 99. They got Dylan Wiseman for 51. David Prosiak for $5. Brandon Wilson for $1. Sergio Ido for $2, who we had last year. Victor Blom for 22. Alan Lee for 9. And Alex Ponikovs for 11.
This team's, I really like this team.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know you and I have talked about Alan Lee in the past.
Love Alan Lee.
He's a very selective player. So, you know, that's going to be interesting. So these last two picks, Alan Lee for $9 and Alex Ponikovs for $11, they had $18 left, which I think was the most out of anyone at the time. And they structured it so that no one else could outbid them. They said Alan Lee for 9. They said Alex Ponikovs for 11. So that's how they went about that.
I think that Prosiak pick will be good value. I think Sergio is good value, $2. Probably going to play everything up to the 250K when it comes to Hold'em. And, you know, Brandon Wilson for $1, you don't know what he's going to play, but, you know, his results speak for himself. So,
yeah, my concern would be Brandon Wilson. It's just a roster spot for a guy who I could feel like could play 5 events, like 250K, 100K, 50K, you know, like that. Like that's it for him. All right, Team Novig. This was a new team this year. They got Chance Corneth for 80, Chris Brewer for 70, Brad Ruman for 31. Yuki Zhu, a.k.a. Rich Zhu, for 13. Nick Seward for 1. Cooper Felton for 2. Ismail Bojang for 2. And Kyle Miholic for 1. I don't know Cooper. You know, I know I looked up his Hendon after his name was called. I don't know Kyle. I looked up his Hendon after his name was called. They feel like, you know, kind of those boomer bust, low price. Hopefully you hit a couple field bonuses types of guys. The Ismail Bojang pick, I know he's been a popular name in the past. I just have no idea what his volume is going to be like. So I would worry there.
I'm not sure if Yuki Zhu put out any tweets telling people what his schedule was. So that's that $13 there. You don't know. Is he really going to be playing a full schedule?
I mean, if he is, then that's a pretty good pick. So I don't hate this one.
I just don't like how they finished their draft.
See, I don't like having a guy like Chance Kornuth as your biggest player. Not that Chance Kornuth is not good and not that he's not worth a hefty price, but I just don't think the overall volume is going to be there. You know, so I just don't know.
Chance is another one with kid at home back in, I think, what is it?
Texas,
Nashville?
I think now. Or maybe Nashville, one or the other.
Yeah. That like, is he, you know, we know he can play everything, all buy-ins, all games, PLO, no limit. But is he going to do the 2 weeks
Does
here?
he play the big PLOs?
Of course he plays the big PLO. Yeah, but is he going to do 2 weeks here, go back, spend some time with the family, kind of come back? When, you know, he's one of those ones. Or he could honestly just be, you know, he doesn't play our events anymore, mainly because from a multitude of reasons, but it could be something where he is completely invested in the World Series and playing the 3K Hold'em, a 1500, you know, even the Gladiators of Poker, as well as everything up to 100K. We're not really sure. So I don't think him being an anchor is horrible. I just don't like how they finish their draft with their bargain players.
Glue Factory, that was Danny Sepiel's team. He got Phil Ivey for 95. Ivy's back, I guess. He's back,
Who
baby.
knows?
Nacho Barbero for 59. John Kite for 26, who we had on our bargain list, has been having some success recently. I believe he's a British player and has a pretty big poker stake offering out there. Brock Wilson for 5. Georgios Soteropoulos for 3. Cherish Andrews for 3. Andrew Lichtenberger for 1. Ian Steinman for 8. They stole Ian Steinman for us. So, yeah.
I love their bargain players here.
No.
No?
I mean, is Andrew Lichtenberger playing poker again? I have no idea. I could not tell you what he's going to be doing.
They have the 5 Hold'em field bonus people right there. They got Brock, they got Georgios, they got Cherish, they got Lucky Chewy, they got Ian Steinman. They could hit all 5 of those, could finish top 27 in the Monster Stack.
Sure.
Their team is very no limit Hold'em based. And obviously Dan Sepiel being a no limit guy, that does make a lot of sense, knowing those players better. But I like how they finished the draft, to be honest. I don't like Ivy for the 95. Who knows how much
I love Ivy for 95.
I just don't know when he's showing up.
I think I don't like Nacho for 59. I think
that seems the right value, though, doesn't it?
I don't know. I don't know if I'd be willing to pay that one. Moving on to Girl Dads. That's Ryan Reese's team.
These are Ryan and Jesse's team, by the way.
But Jesse's not here.
Well,
But he's on the team. He's on the team for $103.
They always split the team.
No, I know.
Oh, okay.
So Jesse Lonis, 103. Patrick Leonard, 30. David Funkhauser, 23. Nick Papillo, 10. Brad Owen, 12. Christian Roberts, 15. Aram Zobian, 1. Ethan Yao, that's Rampage, for 1. I mean, this team, I got no idea what's going on here. I'm a fan of David Funkhauser as a pick.
Same.
I'm a fan of Patrick Leonard as a pick. I cannot in a million years reconcile spending $103 on Jesse Lonis. I mean, I know he's hotter than ever right now. I love the guy. He's like an OG gangster type of player. I just, what? 103?
It seemed a little pricey.
Seems outrageous.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening?
But I guess, would you say the pads was probably undervalued at $30?
Yeah.
So then I think maybe if you put them together for $133, it's probably not horrible. If you look at it, try and look at it that way.
Yeah, but like, can you take that $100? If pads is 30 and David Funkhauser is 23, which I like those prices for those players, you know, can you take that $100 for Jesse Lonis and, you know, spin it into something else? Like, for example, you could have spent $66 on Alex Foxen, who is going to play likely the same exact stuff as Jesse Lonis, maybe even a few more things, and is probably a little bit of a better player. And even if he's not a better player, even if they're the exact same player, you get essentially $40 to spend elsewhere, and you're not, taking Rampage and Aram Zobian and, those picks. Like,
I mean, you
that's
could
what I'm
basically
saying.
get Negreanu for that price too. So
Yeah, so that's just, I can't. I mean, I can't imagine paying 103 for Jesse Lonis, But hey, it's his team, so whatever. Frog Poison. This is Martin Zamani's team. Got Scott Seaver for 125, Dylan Smith for 64. I like those two picks, I think. I will say I'm a little burned by Scott Seaver, but whatever. It is what it is. Ryan Lang for 6, and then they rounded it out with a bunch of $1 players. They got Mike Holtz for $1, Noel Rodriguez for $1, George Wolf for $1, Sean Troha for $1, and David Stam for, well, it says 0, but it's really $1. I mean, this is similar to our strategy, superstars and scrubs. So I'm always going to really like that strategy. I think Dylan Smith here is severely underpriced at $64. I'm kind of surprised. I don't remember exactly what was going on with the team that Dylan Smith is a part of and why he wasn't in on himself, but $64 for Dylan Smith seems like an absolute freaking bargain.
He was in on the bidding. I think he just got to a point where this is a little too expensive.
But that's such a great price. Like I'd rather have Dylan Smith for 64 than Jesse Lonis for 103.
From memory, I think Martin didn't have too many people picked. I think Dylan's team already had a pretty strong base, and maybe they just couldn't afford him.
Yeah, sure. Some of these $1 players, I just kind of question volume. I know Mike Holtz will be there probably every single day, but how high is he going to play?
Yeah. And online doesn't count, right?
Yeah, online does not count. I don't know about Noel Rodriguez in terms of his volume. I don't really know about George Wolf in terms of his volume. Sean Troha is literally Omaha only.
Yep.
So, while that's good, he's obviously very good at that. I don't know. And then David Stam is kind of a flyer, but whatever, no big deal. Survivor Sweat. This is ODB's team. They got Michael Monsek, that's Texas Mike, for 89, Ben Yu for 31, Marco Johnson for 49, Danny Tang 26, Sam Laskowitz for $1, Tyler Monsek, who is the brother of Michael Monsek for $1, Ali Islami for $1, and Esther Taylor for $1. So first thing I want to talk about is this story that I talked with ODB afterwards. So he drafted Texas Mike, who is supposedly playing every single day as many friggin' bullets as humanly possible. He basically told ODB, I think, I'm paraphrasing, whatever, but that he would trade his first kid for winning player of the year. So he's ready to go. He's ready to go.
That's a big...
He said that ODB should draft his brother, who doesn't know how to play poker, but Texas Mike will teach him, and Texas Mike will put him in everything, possibly the 250K.
What?
I read the text messages. I'm sorry if I'm outing you, ODB. I know you talked about it on a story, but this actually happened. He's extremely experienced, but he's the smartest person I know. I will teach him, and I will put him in everything up to 25Ks, and it's likely that he might even see him in the 250K. I mean, what is this kid on?
He cashed the 5K last year, and at Paradise last year, he cashed in a 10K GG Millions. So,
I mean, this is
an amateur, but
this is an outrageous pick. A crazy story if it happens to come to fruition and works out for ODB, but holy Lord, this is wild. It's just wild how this comes together. Danny Tang, I know ODB is somewhat close with. I really like that pick. Danny Tang's one of those guys where I can never really get in touch with or, get a schedule on. I know ODB, if you listen to ODB's pod that he has with Adam Schwartz, he has talked about how he's kind of close with Danny Tang. So if he's making that pick, I like it. Marco Johnson, I feel like, is one of those ones where I know ODB's close to him, so I guess I trust him there. I just don't know, me personally. And then Ben Yu, I mean, you're the guy who texted me the other day. What the heck has happened to Ben Yu?
Yeah,
I haven't seen that guy in a year. So I don't know. Is he playing? I mean, I guess so.
Yes, so.
So there's that team. Team Australia, they went and got James Ops. They got David ODB Baker. They got James Ops was 91. Baker was 51. They got Jerry Wong for 19. Brandon Sheck Harris for 32. Romain Morvan for $1. Didier Guerin for $1. Ryan LaPlante for $1. And then Mustafa Canute for $4. I guess the one that sticks out to me is Brandon Sheck Harris. If you're paying $32 for Brandon Sheck Harris, I think you must know something. Like he's back.
got to be playing, surely.
I mean, that must be the thing. Like, or are you just looking at past results and going off of that? I don't know. Handsome Horses. This was Benny Glazer's team along with Patrick Leonard and Craig Chait. They got Chad Sledge for 87, Chino Ream for 45, Matthew Wantman for 21, Chris Hunikin, a.k.a. Big Huni, for 15, Phil Sternheimer for 21, Tomasz Gluzko for $1. That has to be like a BitB guy as far as I'm concerned. Christopher Clausen, shout out Spewy, for $2, and then Lawrence Brandt for $8. The pick that sticks out to me that I would deem highly questionable is Philip Sternheimer for 21. I mean, I guess first of all, it was weird that he wasn't here. He normally has a team.
Maybe he was still a Triton. That would be my only guess.
But he usually still has a team.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. And he normally doesn't play a lot of the tournaments. Plays like some of the big stuff.
Yeah, he'll play. No, last year he played a lot. But like he also, I'm pretty sure he drafted himself last year.
Okay. Yeah. Team liaison, that was Andrew Ostapchenko's team. He drafted Yuri Zavalevsky for $119, David Coleman for $7, John Manette for $19, Dario Alioto stole him from us. Come on, man. $25, Thomas Taylor, $7, Samuel Mueller for $1, Clemens Reuter for $9, and then Andrew got himself, Andrew Ostapchenko, for $1. I don't know how I feel about this team. I feel like they probably could have. The John Manette pick is, I think, questionable. John Manette is extremely good, but he put out there, a tweet that is kind of questioning what sort of volume that he's going to play, and is he just going to stick to cash games? So I would be a little bit iffy there. And if you could ultimately use that 19 to turn it into somebody else, I don't necessarily know. I'd have to dig a little bit further, but that's kind of the first thing that sticks out to me. The Hoggers, that was Dylan Smith, Chad Sledge, that Florida group. They got Aaron Kupin, who was over there with them at the table, for 42. Jake Schwartz for 31. Matt Glantz for 35. Brian Yoon for 34. Jason Mercier for 41. That seems wild. Robert Wells for 10. Danny Wong for 6. And David Benjamin for 1. This is my least favorite type of build in the entire thing. I hate when you just go like a bunch of like $30 to $40 players. I hate it personally.
There's some pretty good $30 to $40 players there.
Is Jason Mercier playing tournaments?
I feel like if anyone's going to draft him and spend money and it's the Florida guys, that means something. That's the way I see that.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I have no idea, right?
But I mean, if anyone knows that was sitting in that room, I feel like they probably have the most clue about Jason.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe
David Benjamin for $1. Not so sure about that one.
Yeah,
Feel like, they could have got a lot of other dollar players, but I think they were. You know what? Actually, Dylan Smith said, Dylan Smith was going to say Nick Milgram. He said Nick Milgram $1, and he goes, well, actually, David Benjamin $1.
Okay, there you go.
So they could have had Nick Milgram, and that would have been a very good. They might not have got Nick for $1, but they would have. That would have been
we would have got him.
Very good mixed game team. This is all mixed games.
Yeah. All right. Team Nori drafting with Toby Lewis. They got Alex Livingston for 81. Also not in the room, who has been in the room in the past, Alex Livingston. Justin Saliba for 40. Those two, I believe, are roommates during the WSOP. Jim Colopy for 43. Maxim Pisarenko for 12. Noah Bronstein for $1. Toby Lewis for $1. Gus Hansen for $2. Might be the surprise pick of the draft. And then Bao Ding for $9. Bao Ding could come back to haunt Mickey and I. So Renlin had $8 remaining and bid 8 on Bao Ding. Now, I had been telling Mickey through my research, like, this guy crushes. Mm-hmm. He crushes everything. It's just a matter of I have no idea if he's coming or not. So it's basically like if Ren throws him out there, then we know he's going to be here.
Yeah.
And Ren threw him out there for $8. We had 9. And Mickey and I were like literally in the tank talking back and forth. And then the next thing you know, Toby Lewis said 9. But
you had 9 max.
He said 9. So we had 9 max. So we couldn't go 10.
Got it.
But we were thinking about going 9. Now, that's not to say that Team Nori wouldn't have done 10.
Yeah.
But that we kind of got caught up there. We were like, should we do it? Should we not? Like, what are we going to do? Because we still didn't yet have our team filled out. We didn't have Milgram. We didn't have Reichenstein. So we were like, well, should we do it? Should we not? Whatever. It does seem like he's coming if Ren's throwing him out there. So yeah, so that might come back to bite us in the end. The Gus Hansen one is an interesting pick because he was thrown out by somebody on the other side of the room. I forget who. It might have been, it was the Hoggers. They threw him out because this is where you skipped picks.
I skipped one. Yeah.
And then anyway, they throw out him, and then Daniel like jumps out of his seat. He's like, "What? Huh?" And the way that it sounded from Daniel, who I think only had $1 left to max bid on a player, like had talked to Gus that he's playing. And he was basically saying to them across the room, like, "Oh, hey, did you talk to him?" And Jake Schwartz was like, basically like nodding like yes. And then I think Toby got word of that, like saw that and was like, okay, $2. And then he got him. So, that's how that went. Toby also drafted himself because I trust what he said. He said, well, we don't know any other players left, so I'm drafting myself. Like, well, what am I going to do? So that's that team. Team Splashy Octopi, we hit on this a little bit earlier. They got John Reardon for 54. They got John Racner for 54. They got Robert Mizraki for 40. I like that pick. They got Eric Seidel for 15. Ray Henson for 3, Mike Gordinsky for 6, Mike Leah for 3, Eric Baldwin for 5. Tim and I had already hit on this team, so we'll skip past that one. We already talked about Daniel Negreanu's team, and we did hear from him, so we'll skip past that one as well. We'll move to Eric Wasserson's team. So Eric Wasserson got himself for $42. He got Brian Rast for 57, Paul Volpe for 14, John Hennigan for 11, David Peters for 3, Dario Sammartino for 15, Sean Winter for 22, and Renan Bruschke for 36.
A+ team.
So this is
the team.
This is probably
number 1.
An A+ team if you were to grade it today based on skill, and that's that. But for me, it just comes down to volume. Like, how much are these guys going to play? I have no idea. So that's kind of the tricky thing there. Yeah. I guess price per dollar for like I should say like tournaments per dollar, for what I think they're going to play, also how big I think they're going to play. I like the David Peters pick at $3 for them. I think that's a really good one. I think obviously DP's had the baby a long time ago. So, now it's more like kind of back to the grind type of stuff. And he's just an incredible player. So I really like him, especially when you get someone who's going to play all those super high buy-in stuff.
I mainly like this team because you're not going to find them in any other tournament at any other location. Now, look, the cash games may be pretty juicy and they may be in those, but when it comes to tournaments, they're going to play all the big stuff at the World Series mixed game wise. They're going to play all the 10Ks, they play the 50K, they're going to play the 25K horse. They're going to play all of those ones. And, you look at these guys, Brian Rast obviously cares a lot about legacy. I think John Hennigan secretly does too. Paul Volpe's, right on that cusp of breaking into, having 4, 5, 6 kind of bracelets. And then obviously Wasserson got his bracelet at Paradise, so he might be itching to join some of his peers. So that's why I like this team, mainly because it's very WSOP heavy and buy-in wise very big.
I just don't know about Dario Sammartino in terms of volume. That would be my question there. Eric Wasserson was kind of an ego pick. Remember, he like kind of got
100%.
Yeah, he got in on himself late and was like,
but that's
all right,
why
whatever.
I think he's going to make some side bets and he might play big even more than
I know
normal.
you bring up the legacy thing with Brian Rast. My only concern there, like we talked about Rast, Mickey and I, and we think that he's an incredible player. He's really, really good. It's just that he has already ticked the box that he was going for, which is getting into the Poker Hall of Fame. So does he kind of, just pull things back a little bit in terms of like going balls to the wall like he was when it was ahead of getting in to the Poker Hall of Fame? So that would be my concern there. And I just don't know. So, we just, avoided that one. Moving on to Team BTG, I believe that stands for Beyond the Game. This team was drafted by Bryce Yockey and Chris Brewer. They got Nick Wagenti for 38, Dan Zach for 13, Steven Chidwick for 51. He's their most expensive player. Adam Friedman for 18, Dylan Lindy for 36, Punat Punsri for 19, Isaac Haxton for 6, and Awais Ahmed for 19. I think that 19 on Awais Ahmed was just an all-in play at the end. Not sure how I feel about this one.
I don't mind how they started until they got to Punat Punsri. I'm not sure how much Punat will play. Same with Isaac, and then same with Oase. But technically, you could say Oase is a dollar player, so that's fine. Punat, I think maybe for $19, they could have found someone, maybe with they could have got a Felipe Ramos, who I would have preferred much more over Punat Punsri. But who knows? I think they started well. They got some guys that are going to play like all the mix, all the big stuff up to the 50K. Steven Chidwick's obviously their big no limit guy that might be in all those events and the 250. So we'll see. I don't hate this team at all. No.
I mean, my question would be on Dan Zach. Him going for 13, it just feels like people in that room have an idea. Maybe he's not blasting super, super hard these days. So that would just be kind of my concern there.
Mm-hmm.
Splash Sports. This was formerly team No Gamble, No Future. Drafted by Jeff Platt and Brent Hanks. They got Nick Schulman first off the board for $107. They got Ren Lin for 42. They got Adrian Mateos for 25. Renji Mao, aka Ricky Mao, for 9. Frank Brannon for 5. Jason Kuhn for 4. Christian Harder for 7. And Andrew Moreno for 1. Love the Nick Schulman pick. Don't totally hate the Ren Lin pick. Adrian Mateos for 25 when Jesse Lonis is going for 103 is a great pick, I feel like. Renji Mao, I know Mickey and I had him on our list, so I don't hate that pick as well. Frank Brannon, I know who this is. I have no idea what sort of schedule or what he's doing, so I just have kind of questions there. We did have Jason Kuhn at the bottom of our high roller list. We did speak with him. He said, 25K plus.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's fine. You're just not going to get the volume. Kuhn is an incredible player. Again, you're just not going to get that volume. Christian Harder, I like this pick. And then Andrew Moreno, it just kind of comes down to how often is he going to be at WSOP type of stuff? Is he going to be venue hopping, playing the Venetian, playing win, that sort of stuff? But I get, a $1 flyer on Moreno is not a bad thing at all. AJ's Eagles, that's AJ Kelsall's team. We got Max Coleman for 70, Justin Liberto for 35, Arthur Morris for 38. AJ drafted himself for 21, Kerry Katz for 14, Kane Callis for 13, Brian Hastings for $1, and Martin Zamani for $2. I mean, interesting team.
Love Hastings for $1. I think Max Coleman might be overpriced because, he hasn't been playing a full schedule of PGT events like he used to. Now, obviously, he loves the mixed game stuff. He'll always play those, but he used to always play the PLO and the No Limit, but he's definitely dialed it down recently. So I'm not sure, what that means for him when it comes to World Series. So that's the only pick I don't love. Arthur Morris, I'm sure that's, about in line with his schedule. I think Hastings for $1. I think Carey, we talk, sometimes we talk a little bit of negative about Carey, but when it comes to the World Series, I think we'll find him max late registering all the 10Ks and all the high rollers. So at least he'll be putting in the volume and then say what you want to say about skill level or how much else he's going to play. But I think 14. If didn't Dan Shack go for $10? I think that's, about it. I'd rather Carey, I think, over Dan Shack.
I mean, listen, if Carey's going to put in the volume, that's the question with him.
Yeah.
If he's going to put in the volume, if he's going to be firing all those, 10K plus events, probably even 5K plus events, it doesn't matter if they're max late reg, then $14 is not a bad
for someone that loves
there.
Fantasy sports. I'm actually very surprised Carey doesn't get a team in this,
Yeah, for sure. And I will also say that, Carey wants to win a bracelet. And that's, I think, in terms of waking up every day, going back out there and battling, that's a good thing to have as a trait, you know, because you're still chasing essentially what is a poker player's championship title, and that is a gold bracelet. Team Lady Gaga, that's Ren Lin's team. They got Adam Hendricks for 33, Alex Foxen for 66, Zhao Vieira for 85, Anson Sang for $1, Quan Zhao for $1, Zhizhang Luo for $5, Dong Chen for $1, and then Joshua McCulley for $2. I have no idea who Joshua McCulley is. No offense
I think he's
at
an
all.
Australian as well.
Dong Chen obviously has been drafted before. Quan Zhao scores very well. Anson Sang is another Asian player that they're on. Of course, you know, they do the whole like kind of stars and scrubs and then bring all these Asian players, as you know, because they write down their names and pass them to you when they're nominating them. So, yeah, this is the team we were going head to head with over Jeremy Osmus. I don't mind Ren's strategy. I think he takes a very similar strategy to ours. So when it is ultimately Ren going to battle with our team on who we deem as the top guy, you know, it kind of gives me some confidence in that we're on the top guy together. You know, I would love to not have to pay $141. Maybe we get a little bit of a break, but it is what it is. And yeah, the Jeremys, that was Jeremy Becker's team and another Jeremy, but I don't know the other Jeremy.
I think Jeremy Hakim, is that his name?
I could not tell you. I know he's like got a lot of buzz on social media and whatnot. Forgive me for not knowing who you are. But Josh REA 71, Bryce Yockey 66, Jeremy Becker took himself for $2. He was thrown out there for $1. Jeremy Becker said no, 2 to me. Let's go. Yingwei Li for $3, Artur Martirosyan for 28, Dmitry Urbanovich for 21, David Baker for $5, and Elis Parsonen for $1. The Elis one is highly questionable to me. I know there's a fair amount of PLO. I know there's a lot of high stakes PLO. Just questionable to me.
Yeah, very questionable. You know, when will he get here? He does play a bit of Hold'em, you know, in the Triton events, but will he do that here? But I think Ellis for $1 versus Arthur for 28. You know, Arthur is the same, where he's kind of a no limit Hold'em specialist. Does play some PLO, but he is a high roller guy, and a high roller guy for 28, when his volume is going to be, I would say, on the lower side, is probably a little too pricey. But otherwise, really don't mind much of how the other team is built.
Money Mondays, that is Dan Fleischman's team. He got his patented Phil Hellmuth, $79. Calvin Anderson for $51. Mickey and I he was in our plans, was Calvin Anderson, but as we spoke to Calvin Anderson, I believe he said he capped himself at $40, but obviously goes for 51 here. Ryan Reese for 11, Kristen Foxen for 31, Jared Blesnick for 6, Joe Cata for $1, Dan Smith for 6, and then Ben Lamb for 15. Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting team. I mean, it really depends on Phil Hellmuth. You know, he's got to carry things. Is he going to take days off? Is he going to be battling every single day? Or is he going to be like, I'm a little bit too tired, I'm going to go do whatever? So that's questionable. Cal is kind of an enigma. You know, if he shows up every single day, he's obviously one of the best players out there. It's just a question if he's going to show up every single day. And yeah, Jared Blesnick did share on social media. He doesn't know how much he's going to play. So who knows with him? Who knows if that was him just kind of putting that out there? Who knows if he is actually going to be super busy and not going to be able to play a lot?
Yep.
I could not tell you what Jared Blesnick is going to do. If Jared Blesnick does show up and play a good handful of events, then, you know, yeah, he's probably worth $6. And then the last team, Team Brown, that was Andrew Brown and Yuval Bronstein's team. They got Yuval for $44. They got Phil Hui for $30. They got Joe Kuden for $14, Jeff Madsen for $11, Philippe Ramos for $18, Andrew Brown got himself for $2, Scott Bowman for $9, and Matt Vangren for $9. And they were left with $63 on the table, which seems like a freaking absurdity. I don't know what this team is doing, leaving $63 on the table, but here we are.
I don't hate their team. I don't really like the Scott Bowman pick because you never know how much Scott Bowman's going to play.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked with him.
But I liked everything else.
I don't think he's necessarily a good pick.
Philippe Ramos for $18 seems like a bit of a...
I mean,
if Pads is 30, I feel like Philippe for 18 is decent.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke with Philippe. We got an idea of his schedule. We nominated him, right? We nominated Philippe. Yeah, so I mean, we were priced out to go to 18, but yeah. I know Chad Holloway from Poker News, you know, our friend, is big on Jeff Madsen. He kept telling us to draft Jeff Madsen. So I don't know if Jeff Madsen's gonna show up and play every single day and play big.
World Series of Poker maybe for Jeff Madsen.
Yeah, I mean,
can I use that word? The problem with Brown Dog's team is that he started very late. He didn't have anyone on his team for quite a while. And I think that kind of threw out all the strategy. Well, whether he had a strategy or not is a different thing. But, he drafted Yuval very late. So he was kind of left with, didn't have much of the stars left. So he did have to build an interesting team, I would say. But I don't think it's horrible. Like, Andrew Brown could be playing all the mixed games. Same with Scott Bowman. Same
Well,
with
Andrew
Matt
Brown
Wenger.
said after he picked himself, he like kind of blurted out, not super loud, but said like, I'm playing 400K in buy-ins. So, I mean, who knows if that's true or not? That could also be one of those things where, yeah, you have 400K in buy-ins on paper. Are you actually ever going to fully play 400K in buy-ins?
Mhm.
I mean, maybe if you bust everything on day one, it can happen, yes. But it's probably likely not to get to that amount. So yeah, I mean, interesting team. I don't agree with not trying to spend every single dollar because, if you left $63 on the table, like you obviously could have spent on a lot of other players. Jeff Madsen, for example, could have been Dylan Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Philippe Ramos could have been Dylan Smith. Joe Kuden could have been Dylan Smith, like stuff like that, right? Any of them could have been Alex Foxen, for example. So you have a lot of those things that you're probably leaving yourself scratching your head afterwards. I think last year we were left with a good chunk of money at the end, just with the way that things shook out, and we hated it. I think we were left with like $20 or something. We were just like, what the hell? Like, but the way that things kind of broke, it just didn't work out in our favor that way last year. This year, though, we did sure to maneuver correctly at the end of the draft so that we could maximize every single dollar. All right, you got any like top 2 or 3 favorite teams? Who sticks out? Now, you don't need to name us. I got it. You don't got to play favorites.
No, I do like your team. Like I said, I do like Wass's team because it's very World Series centric. I do like Negreanu's, and I'm mainly because there's maybe a chance. He's got a couple friends on his team. Maybe he flips a couple little bankroll boosters to get them in some events they might not have played. So that's kind of the thing that stands out to me. Those 3 teams. I do like Ren Lin's team, Lady Gaga, with the fellow Chinese players that people won't know or recognize. But obviously, if you're in poker and see these results and follow along, that obviously Anson Tang, multi-bracelet winner, Quan Zhu, and Dong Jin, they all had a huge World Series last year. So wouldn't be surprised if, they do pretty well. And I just received, a text message from Lady Gaga's drafting teammate, Adam Hendricks, asking, do you know, like, who these, like, can you tell me who the teams are? Like, who's behind the team names? Yeah, Ren wants to make side bets. So Ren's probably very confident on his team, even though he's not on it. And yeah, I think those are the kind of 4 teams that I would be, eyeing as being the favorites, I think.
I'm in love with our team. I feel like this is probably the best I've felt coming out of a draft. And it's probably because everyone that we drafted, all 8 of the players, were on our lists.
Yeah.
And, sometimes...
You probably don't get that very often at all.
Yeah, sometimes you just kind of get stuck. Maybe you don't have enough money, or people are going for too much where you kind of projected them, or things don't break a certain way. For us, it was kind of key how we navigated the first part of the draft, because we wanted to get Osmus first and we wanted to go for Reardon second. Now, if there was a world like last year where somebody threw out John Reardon, I think third, then, we really wanted Osmus and John Reardon. But if there was a chance that, let's say, Reardon got nominated first, it kind of screws up our whole strategy. Yeah. So, it's luck, the fact that when I drew a card, we got to nominate third. So we were like, okay, this is great. We can nominate early. If Osmus gets nominated in the first 2 picks, we'll just grab him, or we'll throw him out there and then we'll ultimately get him. No big deal. And then we'll try and get Reardon, and then we'll go from there.
What did you think of, I guess, the one thing that shocked me when it comes to like the individuals was Sean Deeb only going for $99 when Negreanu's at, 108, Osmus 141, Jesse 103, Seaver 125. Is Sean Deeb not playing a full series?
Yeah, I just think people kind of sour on people for whatever reason.
Interesting.
Like, I don't think it's necessarily anything. It's also like, when did Deeb get thrown out? Did certain people who would have been high on him, like, basically, there was a world where, let's say, we don't get Jeremy Osmus. Now, I think it was a small world, yes, but let's say some crazy thing happens. We're up to 140 and Renlin says 193. Our second pick was Deeb, right? So it's like, okay, then if we're in on the bidding on Deeb, is he more 130? 140, right? Because we're just willing to bid, that type of thing. So it also kind of goes down to like who's bidding on who and how they feel about it. And that's just how things kind of shake out. So yeah, I just think it's all kind of interesting. But I mean, I love it. Again, I love our team. I love that we got Osmus. I think he's the 1-1, on a draft board. So we just need him to run hotter than the sun. So basically run like Jeremy Osmus and we'll be good to go. Another thing that Mickey and I are big on, we're big on mental game. And Jeremy Osmus is a great example. I don't care how bad Jeremy Osmus runs this summer. He's going to show up every single day.
Yeah.
Probably have a smile on his face. Probably ask me how I'm doing. We might talk about our kids, whatever. And he's going to go in there and he's going to blast. And it just doesn't matter. Some players you kind of tend to avoid, at least we tend to avoid, because you just don't know if they're going to be like, I need a few days off. Oh, I'm kind of sulking. Oh, listen to this bad beat, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, no. I don't want any of that negative energy around this. We want all the positive energy stuff. So, I think we got plenty of that on our squad. All right, cool. Well, I think that's going to do it for us.
It's still a code word. I got. I had a listener ask about a code word. No code word this week. I was like, okay, well,
you're the code word guy. You got to remind me.
This one's very easy. You ready for this?
Yeah.
It's going to be 25K fantasy.
Love it.
So the number 2, number 5K fantasy. We'll keep that up for a couple days. Make sure you enter. Try and win. We want to put someone. Well, we are putting someone in the PGT $1 Million Championship. We want it to be a listener. We want the listener to win the PGT Championship and lift that trophy nice and high, representing the podcast. So head over, the links. I'm not going to say them. They're in the description below. Thanks to producer Rich. And yeah, get the code word in, 25K fantasy. We'll have a new one. If we record every day, I would say, maybe every 3 or 4 days, we'll have a new one. I think that's, yeah.
All right, cool. So you guys heard the code word there from Tim. As a reminder, if you guys want to follow the 25K Fantasy League, head on over to 25kfantasy.com. If you do want to possibly dive into the ODB Fantasy League, you can find the information on 25kfantasy.com. Right at the top, there is an ODB Fantasy menu item. You can click that. You can find out more about it. So let's have a good summer, everyone. It is officially day 1 of the World Series of Poker. Here, we combined it with the 25K Fantasy Draft. Tomorrow, Tim and I will be at Horseshoe. We will be at Paris. We will be in the thick of things. I cannot wait to see how it goes. I have seen a lot of kind of mixed reviews on the registration and the WSOP Plus app stuff. So
we're not heading over there now to jump into.
No, hell no. We've done enough today.
I'm ready. I need to get over. I'm itching to get over there.
No, you're not itching to get over there. But tomorrow, you can see stuff on social media. Yes, I want to see it in person.
Yeah.
I want to see the lines. I want to possibly talk to some people, all that sort of stuff. I think it's one of those things from everything that I can tell on social where it's a giant pain to go through the process, to stand in a long line. Of course, no one likes to do that. But once you're past all of that, I've seen a lot of the WSP Plus app is incredible.
Yeah.
People are showing screenshots. They got their table draw right there, all that sort of stuff. So it's just that kind of initial growing pain that people are going to have to get through. I do hope, and this is obviously something much further down the road, I don't hope you have to go through this whole verification process every single year. I hope it's like a one-time thing.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Hopefully. We don't know. We won't know till next year, but obviously we will see. All right. For Tim Duckworth, for myself, and also for producer Rich, Ryan, we are out of here, and we will talk to you guys next time.
See ya.